with me.
I mean, it's not a new podcast.
This is a new podcast. It's called The Woifi Show with Woifi and his subhuman.
Subhuman?
You're like a submarine, but a subwoman. No.
Okay.
Welcome to Hello, I'm Listening with your main host,
Dani.
Woifi.
No,
and
Dani's
your
the main host.
Little next to the main host, Danielle.
Wow.
Hey, Danielle, we talked about you have 5 minutes total to talk on the podcast, and the rest I talk. So refrain yourself.
You basically do that anyways.
What?
You basically do it anyways.
That's not true.
Your questions are like 5 hours long. Woifi asks his question and he's like, so, I'm thinking about, and I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about this thing where, when I was 5 years old, there was this thing that happened to me, and then, people are always changing, and then this happens, and then, so what do you think about that?
Also, I love Jesus.
Let me come back to my original question that you probably forgot.
Yeah. Danielle,
yeah.
son of a bitch.
No.
Yeah.
If you're going to dish it out, you got to be able to take it.
Also.
Yes. Also.
If your mom is listening right now, she should just text me completely random, you son of a bitch.
Be more creative.
Okay.
She already did the you son of a bitch one.
She should completely random text me, your dog made me dinner. No, my dog made me dinner.
Wait, she should say that her dog made her dinner or her dog made you dinner?
No, her. So she should text. And
my dog made me dinner.
My dog made me dinner.
Okay.
So, Patty, get typing. So we should quickly go to the guest because it's a long episode.
Yes.
And we have a guest.
We have a guest.
You probably already read that from the tech title.
Yep. And I just want to say, because the title probably mentions something about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is veganism.
Yeah.
Anyone who might be like, I don't know. I mean, granted, if you were like, I don't know, you probably didn't click on the episode and you're probably not even listening. But I just recommend that everybody goes in with an open mind and some empathy and yeah.
It also, we first of all, we are no experts. We talk about our life, our experience, and this person does the same.
Yep.
Kerstin, just, believes in something, and that's what she talks about, and that's it.
Yep.
We don't want to convert you, just,
I mean, we kind of do, but we don't want to be in your face about it. We just want to have a conversation.
Satanism.
Mormonism.
No, Satanism.
We just want to have a conversation and an open conversation, and we just want to, maybe start to change the narrative a bit.
That's true.
That's all we want to do, and convert you.
Yeah. Let's get into
talk to our guest now.
Let's talk to the desk now.
I said desk.
Hello, desk. How are you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine.
The desk
I have to carry something all the time. That's too heavy. Shut up, desk. You're desk, goddammit. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking your time to talk to us about this, for us, also very important topic. But let's start at the beginning. Maybe you just quickly introduce yourself and give us, or the listeners, a little quick fact sheet about yourself.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much for having me and for asking me to come on this podcast, because it's an honor to be here and being among great people. I'm Kerstin, or Kerstin in German. I'm an animal rights and liberation activist. So what that basically means is that I educate people online and offline about the animal industry and how much animals suffer for human choices. And I combine that with graphic design and that's basically summarizing what I do. You do a lot of stuff. So it's kind of hard to summarize it in like one sentence, but I guess that kind of gives it like an overview. Yeah.
Maybe go back to the start. Like when did you start? I don't want to say caring about animals. That sounds so like. But when did you start seeing like the bigger picture of what the industry is doing to and exploiting the animals, and when did you start like actively trying to do something against it?
So I guess the first time that I've really started like seeing the bigger picture was when my partner Kevin, he did his personal training education, and he came across Patrick Baboumian, the strongman from Germany, and he was watching his YouTube videos, and then he was on a fully plant-based diet and also had ethical videos. And that's basically when we came across veganism and more about animal rights. I mean, I've always seen myself as a very empathetic person, caring about humans as well as animals. And that moment, like looking more into veganism and animal rights, showed myself how my actions did not align to the values that I carried. And yeah.
When you look back at how long are you vegan now, or?
I'm vegan now for 5 years.
Okay, wow.
So while watching Patrick Baboumian's videos and looking more into veganism online on YouTube, watching animal activists' videos on street activism and everything, that started in 2017. But I think it really hit me when we watched the documentary What the Health, and then looked more into all the activism videos online, where people were educating other people on the streets. And then it like hit me when I watched this one video by James Aspie talking about the dairy industry. And that's basically when we went vegan, like at the beginning of 2018. Yeah. So that's been 5 years.
Looking back, like in Austria and the Dachraum, so the German-speaking area, is very conservative in terms of eating and their habits and changing the habits, and also they're very protective of the meat, because a lot of dishes in Austria and Germany are very meat-based, and the meat is the main ingredient. So looking back to like starting your vegan journey and also your activism, what was like a big, I wouldn't say drawback, but like maybe like force that was, and I guess in Austria, especially if you have parents or family from the rural areas, what were big forces that kept trying to pull you back from that? Or was there support around your family and friends that pushed you towards your agenda, or was it the opposite? I guess.
I don't really remember that anybody was trying to change my mind in some way or was mocking me. Like I never had that, and I don't know, like maybe because I was like so sure in what I already believed in at that time, or if it just like, I don't know, maybe they just didn't know what to say. I mean, I do have some conversations in the back of my mind where I was like, okay, well, that was a heated conversation for sure. But it was like nothing with, like at that point when I was like, okay, I'm vegan, because that's basically I saw the importance and the responsibility behind it. Like nothing was gonna change my mind at that point. I was like, well, okay, I've had some experience with like plant-based eating, because a lot of people are like worried about plant-based eating, but veganism, it was never about like what to eat for me. It was always about the animals. It was because when I realized like the ethical part of it all, which veganism is, I was just like, okay, this is so wrong, so I have to make it right. And yeah, so I was like, okay, if I'm gonna eat lentils all my life long, then so be it. And yeah, but like, yeah, I would say my family was, all in all, was very supportive, especially my mom and my stepdad, and who also went vegan like 4 months later.
That's awesome.
Cool.
So, yeah, so that's basically what made it really cool. And I felt understood and heard with what I had to say. Yeah.
That must be nice.
Yeah, I just want to say.
It is really nice.
It was a little bit different for us, but yeah. And it still is. Yeah. Especially with certain family members.
I guess that's like, for most people, it's really difficult, right?
Yeah,
so, I mean, I've had a lot of talks with my mom, and my mom is a very empathetic person as well. And so I was like, okay, sooner or later, she will like get it, and she will get the ethics, and she will, self-reflect, and will go that path as well. But I didn't expect it to be so soon, which is even nicer. And it's like sitting at a vegan table all the time, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time it's like the other way around.
Yeah.
And so
when you like look at things that people might say to you, I just can think of things that people say to us a lot when we sit like with our family and we eat something vegan. There's always like this little sarcastic comment or funny comment that that's not food, or it's Beilagen, as we say in Austria. But I guess that you also get that a lot online. What do you think is it that people are so triggered by people living and choosing? I wouldn't even say a lifestyle. It's an ethical choice to go down that path, and not even you're not even taking away something from them. You're living your life. You're not telling them, hey, you should not live this. I mean, do whatever you want to do, obviously. Educating something else. But what do you think is why people are so triggered sometimes by those choices?
I think they're triggered because I think deep down they know it's so wrong to take somebody else's life who does not want to die. And I think they're so triggered because they see other people are already doing it differently, and they don't think they can do it yet, I guess. Or I don't know if they're so conscious about that, but I think it's their guilty conscience, sorry, their guilty conscience that speaks to them without them knowing really that there's so much guilt within them. Because, I mean, when we look at kids, like, we're all getting taught that, we love animals and we care about them, and we help if there's a bird in need, or we carry the spider outside if there's one in our home, so we don't crush it or crush the spider, not it. And I think it's just like them having like kind of like a fight with their conscience inside. And I think that makes them say things they don't. I mean, I can't believe that they mean those things. And most of the coping mechanisms they use is like making fun of something. It's usual reaction to just to make fun of vegans and to make fun of like what they eat, the plants they eat, and because they deep down know that killing for a taste is not the right thing to do.
I'm also somebody who has a lot of empathy for not just like you, not just humans, but everything that's alive and moving and living and breathing. And what I've noticed since we've gone vegan, I don't know if you've noticed this too, but what I have noticed is my empathy has heightened so much more since going vegan, where it's even like when you mentioned the spiders, even things like that, before we went vegan, always had such a fear of anything that was like creepy crawly. And now I feel like I have so much empathy for this little creature. Like, I see these massive black house spiders that still freak me out. But before, I probably would have either killed them or crushed them or thrown them outside in the middle of winter where they would die anyways. And now I'm just like, I'm just going to let them be. Or in the summertime, I just very easily pick up a massive spider and put it outside.
With your hand?
Yeah.
No, not with my hand, but I find a way to do it where I don't hurt it. But
I mean, I've had that too, as long as they're like in the corner up there, I'm like, okay, you stay here, you can live here, but as long as you don't come down, which doesn't automatically mean, that we have to love every single animal or not be freaked out by an animal, even though I think it's so interesting to see how much power they actually have being so small, and then like creating so much fear within humans, basically. So, but it doesn't mean like you have to love every single animal, or like need to find every animal like cute or adorable, and just like respect their life, respect their being, and not hurt them. And I can totally relate to what you're saying. So that's, it has strengthened my empathy as well, even more.
So you were also an animal activist. Maybe talk a little bit about that. What does that incline? What is it that drives you to, go on the street or go somewhere in front of like a slaughterhouse and to protest those people who slaughter those animals? What is it that keeps you doing that, even though, especially in Germany and Austria, the progress is slow. It's there, but it's slow.
Yeah. So I've done a lot of street activism, like went to demos, like TV activism, where people stand in a cube or in a line where they have TVs showing what's happening behind closed doors in the animal industry. I've done vigils, what you mentioned, like standing in front of a slaughterhouse and just trying to make the victims seen, and show those videos and photos to people online, so they can have this door open to the suffering of the animals, who are just hidden behind closed doors and suffering in I would not say silence, because I mean they're screaming, they're loud, it's intensely loud. You can hear their pain, but it's people never see that. They always like see their body parts in the supermarket, which they don't even recognize as such. But what really drove me to do that was the injustice that I saw, the injustice that I that I don't know, it just really, I mean, I think it bothers everyone to see that. And it took a lot to actually go there and then, just see that and do that. But I'm not doing that anymore that much. Or, I mean, if there's an opportunity, I would do that again. But I've not had the opportunity in a longer time, I would say, so I focus more on online activism now. But every single experience that I had plays into the activism that I do now. And I think everything you do and you see and you experience and you feel with your own body and see with your own eyes makes your authentic voice stronger to speak up for the victims. Because just imagining being in their position, it just, I don't know, it shakes my whole body, and I can't even put it into words as you can hear. And that's basically what's driving me. And it's oftentimes we just distance ourselves as well, like on a daily basis, to just not feel that fear and the pain that you've experienced all the time, because otherwise you would not be able to function, I think. And it would drag you down the whole time. But it's like, it's good to remind yourself regularly, I would say, so why you're doing this and who you're doing it for, because it's not because of you, it's because of the victims that need to be seen.
What do you think is a way to reach people about what's happening for people who refuse to, I mean, because I can't watch the videos myself, and I knew before I went vegan, I was like, okay, I know what's happening there. I informed myself, but I cannot bring myself to watch it. And there are a lot of people who can't. I mean, sure, it's not comfortable for anybody to watch that. But is there, in your opinion, a way to maybe bring awareness to people and bring them that sense of empathy for what's happening without them, when they refuse to acknowledge that it's happening or refuse to watch a video that's being shown?
I mean, first of all, I want to say, like, people who are already vegan do not need to watch this footage anymore. It's like re-traumatizing over and over again. And of course, sometimes if you feel like, okay, you're reducing animal suffering more and you gaining that distance, you may wanna, watch something like that to get the urgency of it again. But I would not recommend like watching that on a daily basis and to be constantly confronted with that if you're already vegan. I think if people are not yet vegan, I mean, if they, if it's not, I always say if it's not good enough for their eyes, how is it good enough for the stomach? And so I think it's important and it's essential to actually gain more empathy for other living sentient beings to actually watch that. But of course, if you've watched that, and then there's also different ways to reach out to people. And I think one of the biggest things is educating, like telling facts and like mix it with like an empathetic, like in an empathetic way, I would say. Like always make the connection, always try to make the connection. So if I tell people facts, I always like tell them, but imagine being in their position. Like you would not want to feel this way. You would not want to be there. You would not want to be treated that way. And it's like something us humans live by actually. And that's something that we get taught when we were little kids is like, don't do something to someone you wouldn't want to be done to yourself. And it's called the golden rule, basically, which says it all, I mean, it's, yeah. And I think there's different ways. There's street demos that reach out to people. There's, I would say, sticker activism as well, or chalk activism, or writing blogs or making music. Like there's so many different things that reach out to people because there's so many people who need different approaches. And of course, like, going into farms and rescuing animals is a way of animal activism as well, but we need all different ways of animal activism. We need the ones that go into places and tell people through a megaphone what's happening to animals, and we need people who do sticker activism. We need people who organize events. We need people who do demos, marches, but also like people doing podcasts like the two of you, it's like as long as we keep the conversation going and try to reach out to people in so many different ways, I think we're on the right path. And you can see that. You can already see that, and you can see like how supermarkets are changing what they're offering, not because the people already buying all that stuff, but because they're expecting an even bigger change, because people are waking up and they're slowly but surely, being educated about what's happening to animals in the animal industry. So, there's not one right thing to do it. There's different ways we need to, go.
I mean, there's also, I think, the beautiful thing about veganism is that it's not only good for yourself, it's good for the animals, it's also good for agriculture, it's good for the environment. There's so many reasons. And I think that's also a big point that a lot of people don't see sometimes, is that a lot of people don't go vegan necessarily for the animals. A lot of people go vegan for the environment, which is also fine. I'm all for, if you're vegan and you're vegan for just the environment, that's fine to me. I love that actually. But I think, and you said it already, I think a lot of the problems start already like when we're kids, when we are educated, and the system, the way it's built that we never really get taught how those things work. We get the meat put on the table and it's just, you eat it. It's, I don't know, schnitzel or whatever. It's not, there's no connection to the animal anymore. There's no information being taught that, okay, those animals suffered intensively to be here on our table to feed us. And we have seen in the last 50 years coming, like basically my grandmother, my mom, after the Second World War, everything, gets built up. They didn't have anything. So they were lucky to have like a pig in a year that they could eat. But most of the time they ate, vegetables, potatoes and stuff. So the amount of meat that is getting consumed today is so fucking insane and so fucking unbelievable that we have lost touch long time ago. And I think, as you said, I think a big thing is educating small kids. I'm not necessarily showing them those traumatizing videos, obviously not, but educating them and telling them, hey, what you're eating, this is this animal. And then at some point they might want to make a choice and say, I don't want to eat chicken anymore. I love chicken. I don't want to eat that animal anymore, and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I remember, to piggyback on that, I remember as a kid, and I think a lot of kids will, like people our age will be able to relate to this when they were kids. We never made the connection. I mean, you make the connection, but you don't make the connection with the empathy added to it. So, you know, it's like you eat this is chicken that you're eating, and then you see a chicken, like an actual live chicken, but somehow we never put the two together. You know, even though you're calling it the same thing, you know that that's where it's coming from, but the process, because it's so normalized and because it's so, this is just what we eat. It's the same with milk. You just drink milk. It's strong bones, you know. It's like you're taught all of these things that it makes you big and strong. It makes you, you know, it gives you muscles, you know, whatever. Or the vitamins that you get from it. You know, there are all these things that we're taught as kids, where if we change the narrative and teach the younger generations, teach our own children, hey, we don't eat this because this is a living being just like you are a living being. You know, the connection that needs to be made is that animals are no different than we are. They are living, breathing, feeling creatures. And I think that's the connection we never were taught as children.
Yeah. Because I always say it's the first injustice that you learn, you know, to love one but eat the other. And like you said, like as a kid, you don't put the two things together. I mean, the one thing and the being behind it. And you never question that. I mean, I would say there are some cases, you know, where I would say maybe people live on a farm or close to a farm, and they knew the animal maybe even had a name, and then they're like, okay, we're eating Trudy or something, you know, or someone, you know. It's like, so that might, you know, maybe this glimpse of realization that what you're eating was actually a someone before. But it's like, in most cases, or with most families, it's like, okay, you love the dog and you pet the cat, and maybe have some empathy for rabbits or bunnies, but then you're eating the chicken and the cow and the pig, and it's it's all conditioning. It's so
there's this wasn't a picture, but like this graphic where there are the animals listed, and then there's like this line, and then it asks you, where do you draw the line between the animals you eat and not eat? And it's also so mind-boggling if you look at other cultures like China, for example, where they eat dogs and other animals, where we as Westerns would say, oh, that's cruel, but at the same time we stuff our faces with pigs, which are knowingly smarter than dogs. And
there are plenty of cultures who might look at it the other way and say, oh, you don't eat dogs, but you eat pigs, you know. It's this
so it's just I don't know, I wouldn't say, I mean, maybe it's just brainwashing, I don't know, from the industries.
I think that plays a role, sure.
Yeah, it's traditions, and it's also like, it just shows that culture is not an excuse or a justification for harming animals, harming anyone. And it's just not a justification.
I mean, it's no different with human rights, with women's rights, which we're seeing a lot of right now all over the world, but in the U.S. especially, with the struggle with abortion rights and rights over our own bodies. It's no different. I mean, just because it's been this way for so long doesn't mean that it's right, and doesn't mean that it's okay, and doesn't mean that we can't flip a switch and change things.
Yeah.
And 70 years ago, slavery was still okay.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When I talk to people, I mean, most people I talk to nowadays are very open-minded, but there's still sometimes people who, especially in Austria, are very like, oh, but it's tradition, and you know, all that stuff. I'm like, you know,
but you can make new traditions.
It's, first of all, that's fine, but secondly, it's all man-made, or women-made, it's all made up. It's a concept that was made up at some point, and we carried it along. And to be honest, hearing the voice or the stories of my grandmother talking about, you know, how they had meat once a year or maybe twice a year, it's like, okay, that makes sense to me. They make sense. They didn't slaughter it because they wanted to eat that delicious meat. They slaughtered it because they needed it. They needed to survive on it. That was all they had. And they were way differently in terms of eating and caring and, you know, everything. They didn't we today don't appreciate that stuff anymore. We don't. Again, this disconnect between, okay, this was an animal at some point. There is no appreciation for what it meant to feed that animal, to take care for it, to raise it, and then slaughter it in the most cruel way. And
which in itself, sorry to disrupt you,
fine.
but which in itself is like cruel, even like talking about it, right? Like you're caring about someone and then you're naming that someone. It's just like when you know, live with a dog or a cat and you're like, well, I cared for this being, you know, I fed him or her, and then I really cared, like, and then like one day you just decide to, you know,
yeah,
put a knife into their throat and slit their throat and be like, okay, well, I want to eat you now.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
So it's but I know what you mean. Sorry, I didn't.
no, it's
like,
fine. It's
wanted
fine.
to-
It's fine.
But it's oftentimes when people say to me, they're like, well, you know, that animal had a good life.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
just because someone had a good life doesn't give you the right to take their good life from them. Like it doesn't add up, you know. If you care about someone, then it would be logical to actually, never kill someone, but it's like the logical thing would be like killing the ones that already have a bad life.
Right.
But why, like, saying, okay, they had a good life, and then,
Like, hey,
you know,
we're-
in the end, they all go through the same
Right.
door. It's
Let's go to grandmother with the shotgun and shoot her because
She had a good life.
still a good life. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, like, if you put it that way, and those were things, you know, that convinced me as well, and that just like strengthened my belief and what I've learned, because it was like, okay, well, like even the own excuses that I made just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're doing graphic design, and obviously we snooped through your website, and obviously we read a little bit about, and I already knew a little bit from Instagram, so I knew what you're doing, but you were on your website, you're selling yourself as like a vegan graphic designer.
Yes.
And I really like that, because that's something a lot of people don't do, and because they don't like, you know, to out themselves, especially in Austria. Sometimes, you know, you might not get work because of just that label, but I think that's a very cool thing, because you try to promote that and at the same time try to gain business just from people who support that, which is kind of cool. But what do you do? What is like your daily bread, so to say?
Yeah, so first of all, I think I want to say I just like adding the vegan to like on the website to branding and design, which is like the authentic thing to do. Because to be honest, like over time, I was just rethinking also my graphic design. You know, at some point, I just didn't see like the urgency or the I don't know how to say it, but it's like I didn't see like it was important somehow, because I was like, okay, it's all about animals, it's all about veganism. It's, for me, that's where my interests are right now, and I didn't see like graphic design and animal activism go together. But then I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it another shot, and I'm just gonna, you know, I wanna do graphic design. Maybe I can combine it. So and then for a long time it didn't say vegan on my website. It just said branding and graphic design. But then of course, like, it's a big part of my life. It's my values. They are vegan. They are doing good with what my skills are, what my talents are, what my education is. So it just made sense to put that vegan on there, and also to promote it that way, because I rethought everything, and I was like, okay, with what kind of people do I want to work with, or what kind of businesses do I want to work with? And at the beginning, to be honest, I was like, oh, I don't know if there is enough jobs, and if it's also very it's still a small movement, even though sometimes in your own bubble it seems bigger than it actually is. But then on the other hand, it's like, it's the future, you know, like vegan is the future. And so yeah, it just was like a logical thing to do, to write that on there. But my daily bread, to answer your question, would be branding design. Yeah. And I am still employed for 20 hours at the Vegan Society in Austria as social media manager and doing graphics for the social media page, Instagram and Facebook. But that's for me, it has a lot to do with like passion for working in the movement, like in a different way and using a different voice. And just that's more about like sharing plant-based products. It's not that much about why vegan, it's more about how to. And this gives me a different perspective as well, but also like a different chance to influence people positively and take them by the hand in a different way. And that is what I do, the social media management for the Vegan Society with my colleague. And then I do branding design, which I focus highly on for vegan businesses and entrepreneurs.
Oh, that's cool.
And I also do have the Rule of Nines, which is my I would say vegan merch. And we focus on, when I say we, I mean my partner and I, we focus on embroidery. So
Cool.
yeah, we make patches and buttons with like vegan messages on there. We make shirts and hoodies and beanies. So everything with like that has to do with, and then we embroider it and try to get the message out there in also a different way, and to also support the vegan community and give them something graphically, I would say, that portrays a certain message.
Yeah. We'll obviously put that in the description for everybody to look and maybe order something. You mentioned working for certain people, like, I'm a freelancer. I was in the situation where, a butcher asked me to do something for them. And I was in the, I was just starting. I was like, should I take it? Should I not? I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to, see certain things and then make money of that, profit from that. And in hindsight, I should have just said no. But what I did, I just made an extreme offer. And I said, if they really want to pay that, then I would just give away some of that money and whatever, like donate or something, and the rest is for myself. And obviously it was too much for them, but it's hard to navigate that. And with the vegan label, I think that's a very cool statement to already sort things out like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's also a form, I would say, of like protecting myself as well, because I do not want to be confronted with any more cruelty than I already put myself through. And because I'm online, like I'm active online, and I do read a lot about it, and I do write a lot about it, and I see those images because I'm following other activists. And so it's like keeping myself from like this negativity that's also influencing my work. I mean, of course I could take like this one job, let's say at, I don't know. I always wonder what I, would do, like if I work for someone and then, or a company, and then they would be like, okay, now we have McDonald's. And I'll be like, okay, well, I don't want to do that. And my answer would have always been, okay, well, I would have to quit if you would make me work for them, and it basically said it all. But I mean, you could probably like hide messages in there.
Yeah, right.
But I just, I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want to help them promote their business that's based on animal oppression, exploitation, and murder. So, but of course that feeling of like, okay, well, you are a vegan, and then, okay, now you do everything you can, and then when it comes to your job, like, what do I do, right? So it's part of the progress as well. And to be honest, we're living in a non-vegan world, and not everybody can work in a vegan way, not, somehow be, that's somehow a job that's somehow related to animal exploitation. But it's like, I just, had the privilege and the opportunity to say no to people that I don't want to work with, or the direction that I don't want to work with. And I do see this as a huge privilege, because not a lot of people can, say that, or have the backup, or have the savings, or, it's,
Yeah. Um, to give maybe someone who is maybe thinking about being vegan, or struggling with going vegan, or even thinking of maybe I should reduce my meat intake. What can you maybe can you give them some tips or some motivational quotes or whatever?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would probably give them the recommendation to visit an animal sanctuary and to look the rescued animals into the eyes and ask yourself if you want to, protect them and their specifics, or to pay for the suffering. And I think the answer is always really clear. And just look at the animals, how they're living there and how they're cared for, and maybe also ask the people that are working there, the history of that one individual, for example. And I think it's we have to, meet animals at eye, do you say eye level? Yeah. And see them as equally worthy to life, because for them, their life is everything they have, such as for us, it's all the only life that we have, and they cherish it, and they just want to live happily, as all of us do. And I think that's the most powerful thing, is to actually meet the victims and see how a vegan world could actually be if we just do some small adaptations and just switch our perspective just a little bit, because I think sometimes we just overcomplicate things. Yeah. We always say, well, it's so hard to be vegan, but the thing is we see it out of our own perspective. We're it's hard for us because I can't eat this anymore, I can't do that anymore, I can't wear leather, I can't go to the zoo. But then it's you just see it out of the animal's perspective. If you pay for that, what does it do to them? What kind of life, I would not even say life, it's an existence, a horrible existence does it create for them. And it's
Also, I think it's not, that's something you hear a lot. Oh, then I have to restrict myself. I can't do this, I can't do that. But at the same time, I think it's also opening up your horizon a little bit, especially in food terms. Because let's be honest, the typical Austrian eats maybe 4 or 5 different meals every year. There's not much variety in their meal plan. And opening up to a vegan diet can introduce a lot of different food types, maybe even things you have never eaten before.
Also a lot of different cultures. I mean, you learn so many different types of dishes from other countries that you maybe never would have experienced otherwise.
Right. And let's be honest, nowadays, it's the easiest way, as you already mentioned. The supermarkets, you have plenty of even meats substitutes. Let's be honest, if you live in a Western civilization country, there's no excuse anymore.
Yeah, I think we have to stop always seeing it through our eyes, but see it through the animal's eyes, and then just there's no comparison, right? So for me, it's a 5-minute taste pleasure, but does my need for a certain taste pleasure justify the exploitation and the murder of sentient beings? And everybody would say no. It's and if we see through the animals, it's clear. I think it's clear. And of course, different people have different approaches, and like you said at the very beginning, some people do it for environmental reasons. I think, it's really important to communicate veganism is about the animals and the animals only. Of course, there's intersections to different other social justice movements, and but still, it is about the animals. And as long as people don't get that, they will always be tempted to make excuses, will always be tempted to say, it doesn't matter if I drink that glass of milk right now. Well, it does matter for the animals. And I think that's why it's so important to see the ethics behind it. And because for me, it's before I ever eat any animal again, I would rather die like I would not, I mean, by now I'm really grossed out by everything, but I would not want to put somebody else's body or secretions consciously, consciously, you know, into my body. Like make the conscious decision to actually be like, well, okay, your life doesn't matter more than my taste does. And I think that's what's just, you know, essential.
Yeah. That's it.
Oh, I was
What?
almost every time, like after we have a guest, you come into the podcast going, or the outro, you come in with wow. And so I was going to say wow with you at the same time, but then you didn't say it.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
No, but really, oh, wow. Great conversation.
Wow. Yep. So, I mean,
You might not know it from her accent, but she is a native German speaker.
Yeah.
And her English is wonderful.
stellar. Also, I mean, if you listen to any other episode with a guest, you probably already know that we handpick our guests, and we only pick guests that we think that are that's not true. But we pick very special guests.
Selective.
And I mean, yeah, but we are. And we try to pick guests that not are only interesting to us, but also might be interesting to you. So I think we did a good job.
Yes. Granted.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it seem like we're like elitist or something, like we...
Oh, we are. I mean, look at us sitting
'Cause
here with our
I fully
suits,
stand by what I say.
drinking
Anybody can
champagne.
come on our podcast and talk to us.
Only if you drink
but-
champagne and sit
But I think
on the
what you
couch with
mean...
suits.
Okay. I think what you mean by hand pick our guests is that we,
Hand select
you
them.
know, we have conversations beforehand a little bit and just see what they're about. And then we decide if we want to ask them to be on the podcast.
Right. That's
It's not
what I
like,
mean with hand
it's
pick,
not like
hand select.
people are lining up at the door and we're like,
I mean-
bye, bye,
yeah, they
no,
are.
bye.
Yeah, they are. Like I ignore 60 emails every day. So it just
I'm
receipts.
the Prince of Persia and I would like for you
Would like for you to sign
invite
this.
me on your podcast and then I send you $5,000.
5,000,
Yeah.
more like 5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is send back
No.
$1 million.
But in all honesty, we try to get people that are interesting to us and have maybe something interesting to say. And that could be you, obviously, but it's also okay if you don't think so. And I think we never had a guest where I thought like afterwards,
No.
that was not as good. So yeah, good job.
Good job, guests.
No, good job, team. Meaning me. I'm the team.
Indeed.
Yeah.
If you are thinking about going vegan and you don't know where to start, you can just there's a lot of resources out there, but
And
you
we
can
put a
reach
lot
out
of
to
links.
us. We'll put a lot of links in the description. And my personal recommendation is to just start slowly. So
Yeah.
don't try to throw yourself into it cold turkey, because this is not meant against anybody, but you will likely fail. It's not
Especially cold
because we
turkey's
don't
dead.
believe in you, but
Right.
it's just statistically that way. So maybe just start out by cutting out meat a little bit. So, you know, you only eat meat twice a week, or you have 2 completely vegan days during the week, you know?
Yeah.
So don't give me the hand, like, hurry up,
We
mister.
have-
I take 10 minutes to ask a question.
We have a veganism episode and we already talked about that plenty. But yeah, I agree. But what a dog.
You just heard the rat squeak too.
Yeah. But if you like what you hear, if you want to support us, subscribe to the podcast, like the podcast, rate the podcast, and head over to our Patreon where you can actually support us with a little bit of your money, and we can keep doing what we're doing, like Joe does. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe. What you doing with that gun in your hand?
Joe is a manly man name. And Joe rides horses and Joe rides trucks.
Now I'm giving you the hand.
That's it.
Come on. Watch out for deer.